has to stop. Because along with everything else, it's destroying our country. We're going to stop woke. Woke. Woke is bullshit.
This isn't the first time that Trump has put on quite a show about woke culture. Be it for detractors or fans though, he seems to ignite a spark with the purest fire when it comes to anything he touches. Over the past few years, he has elevated what he sees as an all-out war against political correctness gone mad. From the rally stage to press conferences, his words have left people either cheering or fuming, no in between. Let's dive into how Trump has called out woke culture unapologetically and consistently before the world swooned about it. Before getting into the combative moments with Trump matter, it's better to just lay down the basics of what woke culture is. It is a modern emphasis on social justice, inclusion, and equality. Grotesquely, it is what Trump perceives as overreaching, censoring, and rigidity in culture, a term. And he is never shy in letting others know such. Trump simplifies his approach to woke culture by taking their accusations, turning them on their heads, and running with them. His memorable moments include a time when someone attempted to pin him as a misogynist. A passionate account of his many endeavors involving women in male-defined realms sufficed for a defense. Not only did he defend himself, but he also counter-defended himself as someone who broke barriers before it became trendy. That's classic Trump. Don't just deflect, dominate.
I knew I shouldn't have picked her. I knew I shouldn't have picked her. All right, so let me give you that answer right now. I respect women incredibly. I have had women working for me in positions that they've never worked in terms of construction, in terms of so many different jobs. I had a woman who was in charge of the building of Trump Tower many years ago, before it was even thought, before anybody would have even thought of it.
But that's just the start. The wage gap? Trump waved it off with a statement that boiled the issue down to individual performance. Refreshingly candid for some and maddening oversimplification for others, it made headlines and added fuel to his anti-woke fire regardless. No topic is more controversial than the contemporary debate on gender. True to form, Trump does not mince words about it. He declared the stance of his administration that there were only two genders at birth. This is not just a remark given off the cuff, but part of broad promises to legislate protections on traditional gender roles and parental rights.
With the stroke of my pen on day one, we're going to stop the transgender lunacy. And we will keep men out of women's sports.
Trump sharply set against progressives on the issue by stating that his policies would include barring transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. To his supporters, that was a defense of fairness. To his detractors, it was exclusionary and inflammatory. Regardless of where you stand, Trump made sure the world was paying attention. Trump loves a good sports metaphor. He often utilizes the theme of athletics to nail his points about gender and competition. The most discussed moment of his included a tale about a female swimmer competing with a transgender athlete. The theatrics of his performance were nothing short of dramatic, with the most exaggerated pictures of wingspans and seeming wind resistance. It was music to the audience, who would laugh along with him in celebrating the absurdity of the perception.
And we will, of course, keep men out of women's sports, I promise. Last year, the radical left's gender insanity arrived right here in Salem, when a man was allowed to transfer onto the Roanoke College women's swim team. And I just met them backstage, the great swimmers.
Then there was the weightlifting story. Trump narrated that a lady smashed records in her discipline, only for her mark to be beaten by a guy-bodied competitor. The punchline? A tongue-in-cheek punch about how easily the bar could be lifted by one having a biological advantage. The humor was sharp and the message was pretty much clear. To him, including transgender athletes in women's sports, was unfair and symbolic of a larger cultural problem. There's a lot more to Trump's rhetoric than policy proposals or serious discussion. Sometimes it sounds more like stand-up comedy, and it's not less true when it comes to reading his critiques of woke culture. Be it satirical comments made regarding pronouns, or jokes about starting his own women's basketball team with LeBron James playing, Trump knows how to use these stories to hold up an audience with his points. His humor plays this double role, lightens the mood and, if you like, a very good technique to deprecate what he considers nonsense about woke ideology. Some would call that bad taste. Others might call it freedom from so much political calculated doublespeak. One of Trump's favorite methods is positioning his views as common sense. Regarding gender, political correctness, or debates about culture, he typically contends that such important opinion regarding, just to name one topic, everyone else in the country believes it to be true. Everyone's thinking it, but no one's saying it, is often the meaning he implies. Like gender identity in school, that is going to be his argument for not allowing minors to transition without parental consent. Protecting families is more of a parental rights issue than a broader discussion on gender identity, and it takes away nuanced conversations to just highly charged stuff. Whether you love him or hate him, Trump is the king of mixing dad humor with serious political content. His rallies are part speech, part comedy show, and part cultural critique. He often intermingles these three components when he speaks against woke culture to create a moment that becomes viral almost immediately. For instance, the hypothetical suggestion about having the head of the women's basketball program coach his team to perfection with male talent and recruit them to take over the show created laughter across the room. While it was intended to be funny, it seemed to underscore his wider criticism of gender inclusivity in sports. The line between the two blurred into one by now, leaving supporters and critics alike to contend over the real intent behind it long after the rally ended.
Americans are exhausted trying to keep up with the latest lists of approved words and phrases and the ever more restrictive political decrees. Many things have a different name now, and the rules are constantly changing. The goal of cancel culture is to make decent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it.
It is also against cancel culture. He has always made it clear that he is a free speech champion and believes that wokeism drains open discourse from America. Awake culture cancellation is no more for comedians, politicians, or just ordinary Americans since, according to Trump, people get cancelled for their opinions. Once in a rally, he sternly spoke about the many who were silent because of the fear of an angry outback. By setting himself as a person brave enough to speak his mind, Trump appeals to those who feel similarly stifled. The message is clear. He's fighting for more than his views. He fights for the right to express them without fear. Trump harshly criticizes woke, but it is not only about the news burst, but part of the bigger program to galvanize his base. For many of his supporters, it holds a mirror to their traditional values and progress to counter what they see as social encroachment. Okay, critics argue that his rhetoric is too simple for complex issues and further encourages divisions. His humor is being interpreted as being dismissive and his policy proposals as exclusionary. Yet, on any side of his argument, it is clear that Trump's attention-grinding strategy about woke culture has significantly changed the discussion and forced both battalions to engage with it in some form within the precincts of the issues he raises. The campaign against woke culture Trump is unlikely to fade anytime soon. Propagating through legislation, speech, and his attention-stealing one-liners, he has kept proving to be the face of this debate. His words keep conversations going, igniting many passions or sparking controversies. This thing is not solely about criticizing. It is also about positioning oneself as a voice for those left behind in swift cultural changes. people would either see him as a truth teller or an instigator. But one thing is sure, he knows how to keep the world watching when it comes to tackling woke culture.